Hi everyone, it's Aubrey again. I'm back in front of my window. I do like to film my videos in the living room more, but my dad's in there. So we're back here. And today I wanted to talk to you about something that I feel is really important to talk about. But it doesn't usually get talked about very often, and if it does get talked about, it doesn't usually, there's not enough attention brought to this. But a lot of girls in particular with Aspergers are misdiagnosed with mental disorders. I was too. And the two that kind of are the most problematic, I think, that I was diagnosed with was bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder. And these were both diagnosed by different people, different doctors. I was not even aware that I was diagnosed with bipolar until I saw it on my chart. But I'm not bipolar. And the reason why a lot of autistics get diagnosed with bipolar is because with bipolar disorder, you have the mania and the depression. And there's different types of bipolar. The type I was diagnosed with was, I think it was bipolar 1. I don't remember if it was bipolar 1 or bipolar 2, but the difference between the two is one of them, the mania, is higher and the depression is still low, but it's not quite as low. And then with the other one, the mania is kind of like hypomania and not as high as up here, and the depression is lower. And so I was diagnosed with the one with hypomania, because yeah. And the reason why a lot of autistics get diagnosed with bipolar is because we have a lot of mood changes. But that's not because we're mentally ill. That's because we feel really deeply. I feel much deeper than most people would. And I think that's one of the misconceptions that bothers me the most, is that autistics don't feel as deeply as other people. Which, in a lot of cases, it's kind of the exact opposite. Autistic people feel very, very deeply. And so when I'm happy, I'm really, really happy. And when I'm sad, I'm really, really sad. Because I feel deeper than most people do. Most people have like an emotion spectrum, like this big. Mine's about this big. And also, a lot of autistic people have black and white thinking. This is something I've gotten better at, mostly because since I'm now aware that I'm autistic, it's been brought to my attention that I need to work on this. When I didn't know I was autistic, I didn't know that I thought any different. But black and white thinking is the world is good and it's bad. There's not a lot of gray. And I do believe that's another reason why autistics get misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder, because bipolar is, it's two different poles. It's really, really awesome or like really bad. And just to clarify, mania is not always like a good feeling. It can be, I'm not gonna get too much into it because I don't have bipolar, but I just wanted to. But so when you have black and white thinking, it's either good or it's bad, and you'll have somebody who feels really, really deeply, much more intense feelings than the average person. It's kind of a recipe for being misdiagnosed as bipolar, if you can see, and that's kind of the same reason for borderline personality disorder. I was actually really offended when I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, not because of the diagnosis, just because of how they chose to diagnose me. So I was actually at an endocrinologist appointment. I think that's the doctor that I was at. I've seen so many doctors. I remember who she was and stuff. I don't know if endocrinologist is the right word. Is that hormone doctor? If an endocrinologist is a hormone doctor, then I was an endocrinologist. And we were there for my hormones to try to get them sorted out and stuff. And I just kind of brought up that I was Aspergers. And she looked at me and she said, "Really? Why do you think you're I don't think you're Asperger's." And I was like, well, and she's like, "Hey, have you heard of borderline personality disorder?" And this was about 10 minutes into seeing her, and I was not even talking to her about that. That's not why I went there. I went there for my hormones. And that's why I found it kind of offensive and rude. Because you don't just diagnose somebody with a very serious mental disorder after 10 minutes of seeing them when that's not even what they're there for. And also, I'm autistic. She's wrong. Like, I don't have borderline personality disorder. And the reason why a lot of autistics get diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, I'm going to explain to you what borderline personality disorder is. And hopefully it's kind of obvious about why I would be misdiagnosed with this and other autistics would be misdiagnosed with this based off of what I just told you before about how autistic emotions work. I think it's also important to mention that a lot of autistic people have problems with emotional regulation, and part of the reason for that is a lot of us have trouble identifying how we're feeling. I know, me in particular, that's something I've struggled with so much. Even simple emotions like sad, happy, scared, it took me so much time and so much effort to even be able to identify those simple, basic emotions. I just said, I feel bad. I feel good. But what does that mean? I was not able to identify that I was sad. And when you're not able to identify your emotions, it's really, really difficult to regulate them. Because you kind of regulate your emotions based off of what emotion you're feeling. There's actually a specific word for this problem that a lot of autistic people have. I don't remember the word. I think it starts with an A. And the girl who does the Ask an Autistic, there's a lizard, I'm sorry. The Ask the Autistic series, she has a video on that. So yeah. But borderline personality disorder is, I'm afraid to explain it because I'm afraid that I'm going to explain it incorrectly. So as I continue to explain this, please just take it with a grain of salt that I don't know a lot about this. And hopefully but I think I can explain it better if I explain the neurological side of it. I read an article a couple days ago about the effects of early trauma on developing brains, and it was extremely interesting. And one of the things that happens, particularly when there's trauma between ages 5 and 10, which is kind of when the left side of the brain is developing the most quickly. Anytime childhood trauma, but especially during those times, certain parts of the brain do not get developed correctly. And one of those is the part of the brain that connects the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain. And if you're familiar with the different parts of the brain, they do different things. One side is for emotional regulation and feeling emotions and stuff, and the other one is for logic and reasoning and stuff. And the part of the brain that connects those two does not get developed correctly. And so there has not been studies to confirm this, but based off of the findings of that study, there is a hypothesis that, and a theory, that borderline personality disorder could be the result of that not being developed correctly. So, you have somebody who their brain does not talk to each other correctly, so it goes from using only this part of the brain to only this part of the brain, when in a healthy person you'd use both simultaneously. And so a lot of extreme emotions, very, very deep despair to very, very happy, and that's very similar to autistic people, based on what I just said, because it's very black and white thinking in borderline personality disorder, and so is autistics. And so borderline personality disorder is one of the most common things for autistic people, especially girls, because girls don't get diagnosed very often just because of gender biases and stuff, but it's one of the most common misdiagnoses for autistic people because there's so much overlap. But just because there's a lot of overlap between them doesn't mean they're not two different things, because they're different things. Autism is not a mental disorder, and Aspergers is not a mental disorder. Aspergers is a form of autism, a high-functioning form of autism, and it's not a mental disorder. Borderline personality disorder is a mental illness. Asperger's is not. Asperger's is just the way that my brain works, and my brain works differently than most people, which can actually be a very good thing, because you need people that think different. The only problem is there's a lot of stigma in the world, and people like me are not usually accepted very easily, and it makes it hard. Especially because I can't find the necessary help and stuff. But Asperger's can actually be a really good thing, but that doesn't mean it's not hard. I hope that makes sense. It's a very, very difficult condition to live with. I think a lot of that has to do with the way our world treats people like me, though. And less to do with me just being a defect. So that's what I used to think. I used to think I was defective, and that's why I was autistic, but I'm not defective. The world is. The world is disordered, I'm not. There's a lady on YouTube that I watch, and she was saying, I feel like if she watches this, she's gonna know who she is. Hi. But she's saying, are we disordered or just out of the order? So everybody else is going this way and we're going this way. Does that make us disordered or just out of the order? I don't know, I'll let you figure that out. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm gonna end this video now. I just wanted to share with you why I was misdiagnosed with those two mental disorders, and just raise awareness that this is a problem. I was put on a lot of psychiatric medication when I should have been being I should have gotten help for my autism, but instead I was put on a lot of psychiatric medication that did a lot of damage to my body. I suspect one of them in particular, I developed lithium poisoning, and I suspect that could be what triggered my dysautonomia. I think I've always been predispositioned for dysautonomia because of my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I also think I've always had dysautonomia, but the lithium poisoning really turned the switch on. I think the most psychiatric medicine that I have been on was like 6 or 7 medications at one time. And that's not okay. That's not okay. I'm autistic. That shouldn't have happened. And that's very, very common for autistic girls because gender biases and stuff. I should make a whole video just on gender biases, but I'm gonna go now because it's almost 16 minutes. But I love you guys. If you watched to the end of this, you're awesome. Thank you for the support. I love you. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment. And bye!